This video is going to introduce the idea of percent, as well as how to set up percent problems using both equations and proportions. So first of all, the word percent means per 100. So something like 15% means 15 out of 100. If 15% of people have cats, it means 15 out of every 100. So every percent can actually be written as a fraction by simply putting 100 in the denominator. So for example, if we want to convert percentages into reduced fractions, so for example, we've got 40%, the first step is to put it as 40 over 100. That's what that percentage means, 40 out of 100. This is now a fraction and we can reduce it. There's definitely a common factor of 10. I can divide the top and bottom by 10 to get 4/10. And let's see, now I can divide by 2, and this reduces down to 2/5. So the fraction 2/5 is equivalent to 40%. My second example, 22.5%. I can use the same process. This means 22.5 over 100. Percents are always out of 100. Now to simplify this fraction, first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the decimal. To get rid of this decimal, I need to technically multiply by 10, but that's going to move the decimal one place to the right. So I have to do the same thing to the bottom. I'm going to move the decimal one place to the right on the top and one place to the right on the bottom. That gives me 225. And then I had to add a 0, so 225 over 1,000. This is now a fraction that we can reduce. I can definitely divide by 5. 225 divided by 5 is 45. 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. And then looks like we can divide by 5 again. 45 divided by 5 is 9. 200 divided by 5 is 40. And I can't reduce any more, so 9/40 is the same as 22.5%. Now, if you had noticed that this 225 over 1,000 is divisible by 25, you can definitely just do that reducing in one step. All right, well, what if we want to write a percent as a decimal? So 35% means 35 over 100. And dividing by 100 always takes the decimal and moves it 2 places to the left. So 35%, you can take your decimal, it's at the end of the number, and move it 2 places to the left, and that gives you 0.35. So 35%, 35 over 100, and 0.35 are equivalent. Same is true with my second example, 4.2% means 4.2 over 100. To divide by 100, I have to move the decimal 2 places to the left. So I'm going to have to add a 0 this time. And 4.2% turns into 0.042. If you wanted to convert a decimal into a percent, you would just do the opposite. You could take the decimal and move it 2 places to the right. All right, what if we want to write a fraction as a percent? Let's write 4/5 as an equivalent percent. Now there's a couple different ways to do this, but I want to show you how we can actually write a proportion to solve this problem. So a percent is always a number out of 100. So we can actually set up a proportion here. My percent is some number over 100. I want this to equal the fraction given 4/5. So I'm going to set up a proportion 4 out of 5 equals x over 100, where x is my percent. If we want to solve a proportion, we can set our cross products equal. That means 5 times x has to equal 4 times 100, or 5x equals 400. To solve for x, I need to get rid of that 5. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. That cancels the 5 out on the left. And 400 divided by 5, let's see, 40 divided by 5 is 8, so 400 divided by 5 should be 80. And that's my answer. 80% is the same as 4/5. Another option you have, if you don't like this proportion method, is you could take your 4/5 fraction and convert it into a decimal using long division. 4/5 is the same as 0.8, and then move the decimal 2 places to the right to get that 80%. But I think this proportion method is actually a really nice, clean method. Again, we're using the fact that percent is always a number over 100. Percent over 100. Now, we're going to run through two different methods that we can use to solve percent problems. The first method we're going to talk about is using equations. And on the screen, I have our basic percent equation. It says that if you want to find a percentage of a total, you take the percent times the total. So part equals percent times total. Now, the nice thing about using this equation method is when we set up our problems, we can look for some keywords to get our equation set up. If we see the word is, that usually almost always represents our equal sign. And the word of usually represents multiplication. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. Solve each problem using an equation. 40% of 65 is what number? So I see my keywords in this problem. The of means multiply. Is my equal sign. And if you see what, that's your unknown. We'll make that our x. So we can actually convert this question directly into an equation, going one word at a time. So 40%, now this is kind of the part you have to keep in mind. When you're using an equation, you have to convert your percent into a decimal. So 40%, I move the decimal 1, 2 places to the left, and 40% becomes 0.4. So 40% of means multiply, 65 is, so equals, x. To find 40% of 65, we have to multiply 0.4 times 65. So 0.4 times 65, let's see, 4 times 5 is 20, carry the 2. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 2 is 26. My problem has one digit after the decimal, so the product has to have one digit after the decimal, and that makes my answer 26. So 26 is 40% of 65. Here's another example. 4.5% of what number is 90? I see my keywords again. Of means multiply. What number is my x? Is my equal sign. I'm going to take 4.5% and convert it into a decimal, so I have to move that decimal 1, 2 places to the left. So 0.045, that's 4.5%. Of means multiply. What is the x? Is, equal sign, 90. 4.5% of what number is 90? And now I have an equation. If I want to solve this equation for x, I have to get rid of that 0.045. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.045. That isolates the x, or gets the x by itself on the left-hand side. So now I have to take 90 divided by 0.045. And so let's see, I need to clear that decimal on the bottom. So I'm going to have to move the decimal 1, 2, 3 places to the right. So I have to do the same thing on the top. Move the decimal, which is at the end of the number. 1, 2, 3 places to the right. And so this quotient becomes 90,000 divided by 45. And let's see, 90 divided by 45 is just 2. So 90,000 divided by 45 would be 2,000. So 4.5% of 2,000 is 90. All right, one more using this method. What percent of 80 is 88? So there's my keywords. What is my x? Of is multiply, is the equal sign. So as an equation, this turns into x times 80 equals 88. Now the order of multiplication doesn't matter. I'm going to put the 80 in front of the x just because I think it looks nicer. So we've got what percent, that's my x, of, so times 80, that's 80x, is 88. So 80x equals 88. To solve, I have to divide both sides by 80. Let's see, 88 divided by 80. 80 goes into 88 one time, remainder of 8, bring down a 0. 80 goes into 80 one time, so this should equal 1.1. Now we're actually not done with this problem. 1.1 is x, but we're trying to find a percent. And when you use equations to solve these problems, your answer is going to be given to you as a decimal. To convert this into a percentage, we actually have to take that decimal and move it 2 places to the right. So 1.1 turns into 110%. So 80, or I guess it's 88, is 110% of 80. In this example, my answer is bigger than 100% because the part is 88 and the total is 80. The part that we're talking about is actually bigger than the total, and that's why my answer ended up being bigger than 100%. So equations are a great way to set up percentage problems, but I do want to show you a second method. We can actually use proportions to set up percent problems as well. And we briefly looked at this when we were working with that fraction problem at the beginning of the video. But here's my basic setup. Percent is always over 100. So we can express our percent as a fraction as percent over 100, and that has to equal a fraction that is the part over the total. And if you're not sure which number is the total, a nice way to determine that is typically in these problems, the total can always be found after the word of. So that's something to look for if you're having a hard time figuring out which number is the total. So here's an example. Solve each problem using a proportion. What is 18% of 105? So in this problem, they're giving us the total. The total is 105, and we're trying to figure out a part of that total. Specifically, what is 18% of that total? Notice that the total is after the word of. So we're trying to find the part. They're giving us the percent and the total. So as a proportion, percent 18 goes over 100. We don't know the part, that's my x, over 105, which is my total. I can solve this by cross-multiplying. 100 times x has to equal 18 times 105. I can take 18 times 105. 8 times 5 is 40, carry the 4. 8 times 0 is 0 plus 4. 8 times 1 is 8. I put a 0 in. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 1 is 1. Add those together and I get 1890. So 100x equals 1890. To solve for x, I'm going to divide both sides by 100. Dividing by 100 takes the decimal, moves it 2 places to the left. So 1, 2. That gives me 18.9. So x is 18.9. Here's another example. 8% of what number is 1.2? So in this problem, They are giving me the percent, and now we're trying to find the total. Again, notice that total is after the word of. So we're actually trying to find the total, and they're giving us the part. They're telling us 8% of some number is 1.2. What is that total? So using my proportion, the 8 goes over 100 equals 1.2 is my part, and x is the total. We can solve this by cross-multiplying. 8 times x equals 1.2 times 100. So 8x equals 120. Multiplied by 100, you move the decimal 2 places over. To solve for x, we have to divide by 8. So let's see, 8 goes into 12 once, with a remainder of 4. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 45 times, exactly 5 times. So that is my answer. X is 15. All right, that was my last example in this video. As always, reach out if anything is unclear.